All right, good morning from Fly on the Wall Productions, live on Facebook and YouTube, streamed everywhere you get your podcasts, and on the web at airedoutvt.com. Right there is a list of our presenting sponsors. Again, welcome to The Source, one of our newest, which we are so excited about. Roger Hill is basically saying we've got some sunshine, but some rain is coming. That's kind of the bottom line. I don't know if there's any more real details other than that, Raylene. I mean, there's no big honker storm coming, but we've got some warmer weather.
No, but they're not looking, the rain in the forecast with the 2 feet of snow that we just got is not promising. They're really encouraging people to make sure that the storm drains around your home, around your driveways, even if it belongs to the city, protect yourself. They can't get to them all at once. Not just here in Barrie, but all over. Make sure they're cleaned off, not froze up, packed with snow and ice and stuff.
And I think the warmer temps yesterday kind of helped getting some of the snow off the roofs.
It helped get it off the roofs, but what it did was pack it in the storm drains a little bit, and that's what they're most concerned about right now.
With the rains coming.
For flooding and stuff. Wow. So,
Good morning, everyone. It is a Tuesday. We have in the headlines in Vermont this morning a 16-year-old girl from St. Albans, Megan West, is missing. That's
for a couple of days now.
We've posted that quite a bit.
A few times, yes.
On our page. Hopefully we'll find out what's going on with that
and
today.
They currently believe that she's in the St. Albans, Alberg area. So at this point, I'm thinking they're thinking it's a runaway situation if they're have an idea of where she might be. But let's hope that that's what it is, that she is just,
Right. We just had a situation with a kind of a runaway.
There's been a lot of missing kids lately around here. I am not really sure what's happening, but it seems like at least once a week for quite some time now I've been posting about a missing kid. Yeah.
I remember I ran away. I don't remember how old I was, but
did you run away to the backyard treehouse, JD?
No, I got a lot further than that.
You did? The neighbors?
No, much further than that. I got down, I want to say maybe 2 blocks.
Oh, yeah.
It was cold.
It was cold?
I had to get back. I was hungry, I don't know. I would say a good solid 3/4 of a mile.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 mile. Yeah. But that's it. Last night we had a fire in Berlin.
Yes.
What
at the old New Easel farm in Berlin. From what I know as of right now, there are no injuries that have been reported. There was a post this morning that I want to share, and I shared it on our page. Joe Perrault wrote, this is what Vermont is all about. While responding to a structure fire in Berlin, we got stuck in the mud with our fire truck, and a gentleman and his wife pulled us out with their tractor. I hope this finds them and would like to thank them again. We need more people like you. So that was a good that was a good piece of a very tragic event. For sure, the house is a total loss, and a family without a home this morning. And when you talk about a family that's lived there that many years, lots of memories, lots of gatherings, lots of stuff.
Sure.
It's super tough.
Amazing.
It's super tough anyways, but
horrible. And kudos to our mutual aid that showed up everywhere.
Massive.
Long list. Pretty much like every town in central Vermont was there fighting this one last night.
Yes.
And the last, there's a lot of news, and it's all over our page. Thank you, Raylene. But Vermont lawmakers considering millions in new taxes targeting new businesses. This is
and small business. The governor said yesterday the Vermont House will vote on a bill this week to make Vermont the highest tax state for businesses in America. We should focus on making it easier to do business in Vermont, creating good jobs with strong wages. Instead, their actions will drive jobs and opportunities away. We need to focus on making Vermont more affordable for families and businesses. The legislature has instead raised costs for everyone with a new $100 million payroll tax, higher fees at the DMV, a preventable property tax disaster, potentially hundreds or thousands more per year for home heating fuel and electricity cost, plus more. Vermonters have had enough.
Those were that's a quote from Phil Scott.
That is a quote from Phil Scott. That's directly from his page in the afternoon yesterday. So, and I mean, I agree. I don't know how much more my wallet can handle.
Yeah,
it's just going to the grocery store alone is frightening. Never mind the rest of the stuff.
We got to repost this story.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is a Tuesday morning. I want to thank Diane Kinney, who's sitting right next to you, Raylene, for coming in here this morning from Circle of Washington County. Diane, you've been on one other time here.
Been on two other times.
Yeah.
Two other times.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
Once to talk about our October events, because October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Yes.
Actually, both were. The other time was with Courtney's Allies, who we had joined with to do some events in October.
And April is Sexual Awareness
Month, yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes. And we have a Calcutta happening.
Yes. Tell me about
I'm
that.
going.
Yay, thank you.
Yes.
The Calcutta is happening April 13th at the Barry Elks Lodge. For those of you that don't know what a Calcutta is, it's a gambling event. Tickets are $125. That gets you 2 dinners and a ball. And that balls are 1 to 100. They pull balls all night long. There's door prizes. There's different prizes as you go. If you are the last numbered ball pulled, you win $1,500.
Oh, my God.
So
wow.
I will be there. I'm happy to talk to whoever I can talk to. Our board is doing a great job. We also will have a silent auction going at the same time.
Wow.
So it's a really fun event. This is our third one that we've done.
I was just going to ask you that. How many?
Yeah, it's the third
years?
one we've done, and it's just a really fun night of being together and laughing at each other as we, because you can buy back a ball or, there's all kinds of stuff going on the whole time.
Sure.
It's kind of like having the Yankee Christmas at your grandmother's house. It can get a little bit,
raucous.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah. So if anybody's interested, and we were just talking about how hard it is right now financially for people, and we know that, and we are also having financial issues because we have a shelter that we house 6 families in. So you can imagine what our bills are to keep that running. And the other thing I was mentioning to Raylene earlier is that we've been level funded by the state. We get state funds, we get federal funds, but we've been level funded by the state for about 10 years now.
That's a long time.
That's a really long time. So we're needing to raise funds in order to continue doing what we're doing. In the last year, the need for our services has gone up 25%. So the amount of people we provide services to the year before last grew by 25% this year.
And in what's the duration of time that you said for that?
In 1 year.
1 year.
1 year.
25%.
And her funding has stayed the same.
And the pay that we can pay our staff has stayed the same. And the amount of staff we have has stayed the same because we can't hire any more people because we don't have any more money.
It always blows my mind what we're willing to invest in, and
that's
think
what
we
it
have
comes
a lot
down
of it
to.
ass backwards here when it comes to this kind of stuff.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
We're a nonprofit, and the other thing is that we need to raise our funds in Washington County because there's an agency like ours, our sister agencies, in every other county. And they raise funds within their county. So if you have a county that has more money, they're able to raise more funds, which makes sense. But so if anybody knows any rich people that are willing to give us some money in Washington County, please let me know. I'm willing to go talk to anybody to keep us going.
Are there any other fundraising efforts or anything on the horizon in the next couple of months or 6 months or
The
so?
Calcutta is our biggest fundraiser right now. Folks can go to our website and just donate through PayPal. Our website is circlevt.org.
All right.
We are always, in the summer, we will be at what's the big Barry Heritage Festival? We'll be there. We try and table as many places as we can. The last few years we've been in the food truck.
In the park on Thursdays.
Right, in the park on Thursdays. We're there. We always will take people's money. and I'll talk to you about what we'll do with it. We provide enormous amount of services, and we do it without a lot of money.
You take the wheel. I mean, it's everything from food to laundry to shampoo to clothing to
we will
everything.
We don't take clothing only because we don't have storage.
But you provide if needed.
But we will, yes, and we provide food. We work with the Vermont Food Bank. They help us out a lot. We have a pantry that has all kinds of toiletries, which are all donated by folks. Which the community, and I'm not trying to say the community's not good to us, because they are. They're incredibly good to us. We're just all in the same situation where everything has gone up.
Sure.
And we're trying to make ends meet.
I think most of us are familiar with Circle of Washington County. What is your definition of what this organization is?
We are a nonprofit that provides supportive services to folks who have been harmed physically, emotionally, sexually, either in a relationship or not.
Safe haven.
Yeah, we have a shelter, so folks who are fleeing from a partner who has hurt them can be in our shelter. We have legal advocates who will go to court with people, so that is for a relief from abuse order, which you can get without the police. You do not have to have police contact in order to get a relief from abuse order. Relief from abuse order is a civil order. So we'll help folks get those orders. We also will help folks whose perpetrator, the person that harmed them, has been criminally charged. We will help folks get through that process because it's confusing.
What a process,
And
too.
intimidating.
Intimidating,
as well.
incredibly intimidating. Lots of folks that we work with that have to go to court either for civil or criminal have never been in court before. So they're scared. They don't know what they have to do. They may have been told by their abuser that their kids are going to get taken away or, that nobody's going to believe them. So coming forward to try and ask for help is a really brave act.
There's so many facets to this.
Yes.
And you told me on the phone, I mean, it's like you guys are always in court trying to help people.
Well, court is happening right now this morning. On Tuesday mornings, RFA court happens in Barry. So it's right now, as we speak, it's going on. It starts at 8:30 in the morning, usually goes till 11:30, 12. There can be anywhere from 3 to 15 cases heard each week.
Okay. So you have staff there right now.
Correct.
Amazing. If you weren't with us this morning, I'm sure you'd be very busy and involved with that, and I really appreciate your time. I know that you're in high demand for what you do, and we appreciate you coming in here so much.
I appreciate you inviting us, and, I want to get the word out as much as possible about what we do and how domestic violence happens.
Yeah. I remember... and I went back and rewatched our last episode together. And I remember saying to you at the end, we should have you on more often. And I think I want to apologize because I think I feel that I have dropped the ball with regard to that. I know that the flood and all that, but it's like... We need to have you in here more often.
I would love that. I think this is a really good platform to put out our issues. I can come and talk about anything you want to talk about that involves gender-based violence.
Okay.
I've been doing this work for over 30, I don't even know now, since 1987.
Okay.
So I have perspective, I think, on how things have gotten better and have not.
What's your title? Are you the
I'm
director?
I'm the co-director.
You're the co-director.
We try and keep things, domestic violence and gender-based violence are about power and control.
Okay.
We try and keep the power very limited in our organization. So we do not have a lot of hierarchy. Carol Diamond is the co-director. She does numbers, I do people, and that's it. And then we have advocates.
Yeah.
So that's it.
How many, if you had to guess? How strong is your team?
We have 6 full-time people.
Wow.
And 3
Not a
part-time
lot.
people. That's it. We do have volunteers. We have a boatload of volunteers, probably 18 or so volunteers, who do hotline in the evening and on the weekend for us because we need to we need a break at some point.
You have a 24-hour hotline.
Yes, we do.
7 days a week.
Yes.
24 hours around the clock.
Yep. Yeah. People can call us at any time. During the day, during the week, like 9 to 5, 9 to 4:30, we will pick up immediately because we're in our office. The hotline rings in our office and in our shelter. So we can pick up immediately. In the after hours, so in the evening and on the weekend, we do have an answering service who picks it up. Then what happens is I'll get a text on my phone and I'll call that person back.
Okay.
And I think that's important for folks to know because they will get a phone call back.
Sure.
And most people call us when they're safe. They don't call us
But
in the
not all.
middle of something. Because
Most, not all, most.
like 98% of people.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Once in a while we'll pick up and they'll be like, oh God, I need help. And it's like, okay, so where are you right now? I'm in the bathroom and I'm locked in and da-da-da-da. Okay, so how can we help? And you hear but that happens pretty rarely.
Okay.
Most of the time, but folks don't always want to call the police.
Sure.
For lots of reasons. And so we'll try and, figure out safety planning. One of the things we do mostly is brainstorm. When people are in a situation where they're really scared and really stressed, we all know about trauma, right?
Yeah.
Your brains get really tiny, and you can't, not your actual brain, but you can't think creatively.
Sure.
So a lot of what we do is help people to think about options, think about what they could do to stay safe, and, creative thinking.
Steve Pappas from the Times-Argus says that on average, every month, there are 3 to 4 stories that the Times-Argus publishes about domestic violence.
I think it's been more than that lately, but yeah.
Lately
I've talked to
it's been-
Steve.
It's been a lot lately.
Yeah, it's been a lot lately.
So that's that's what, about an average of, if that number percentage is accurate, that's one a week.
Well, and what they are able to write about is what shows up in court. So that means there's been criminal charges.
Right. So I wonder what the ratio is from the stories that make the Times-Argus to the actual number of stories that don't make the news that's going on privately.
Probably 1 in 10.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
We are completely confidential, right? So anybody that calls us, I don't care who calls me and says, is so-and-so working with you? My answer always is, I can't confirm or deny, period. We are bound by crisis worker privilege through the Vermont state. And so often we have lots of information about everything going on. And we're not going to, we want people to know that we're not telling anybody anything.
Right.
The other thing that's important to know is that the state's attorney's office, so when criminal charges are made, right, the victim of those criminal charges is usually contacted by the state's attorney's office to see if they'll be cooperative or not with the charges, that kind of thing. So there's victim assistance with the state's attorney's office, and we work with them all the time. Holly is one of the folks over there.
Holly
We
Leach.
love Holly.
Yeah, Holly's great. The thing to know, though, and what we try and help people to understand that we're working with, is they are not bound by confidentiality. So whatever you say to Holly can be put in those charges. So what we try and do, we have funding that pays partially for a detective in the Barry PD or in the state's attorney's office, Todd, who does a lot of research and investigating to help us out. So he will let us know who is the victim of those who have been recently charged.
Okay.
And we will reach out to those folks to see if they don't have to take our support.
Sure.
But if they want our support, we want to be there for them. And it's super, super complicated.
Yeah.
The state's attorney and the police can only go by what the law says. And some of the law,
Very outdated.
Right now, in order to get a relief from abuse order, there has to be physical abuse or a severe threat of physical abuse.
So it's too late at that point.
And you have to prove that.
Well, you don't have to prove it to get the order. The temporary order is what's called ex parte, meaning you say it, you swear that it's true, and the judge makes a decision on that. Okay, so that's how you get a temporary order. When you go to court for the final order, which is happening today, that is when the judge hears both sides, and then the judge makes a decision. So it's helpful if you have some, screenshots of the threat that came by text, or it's helpful if you have pictures of bruises, but you don't have to.
Right.
It comes down to who does the judge feel is more credible.
On the 22nd of March, Eric Blaisdell from the Times-Argus published an article in the Times-Argus titled "Florida Man Placed on Probation for 2 Domestic Assaults in Barrie." The story is about a 22-year-old, Andre Town, locally, who's been placed on probation after getting, again, 2 domestic assault charges in Barrie in 2 weeks. He pleaded guilty Thursday in Washington County Court to felony count of first-degree aggravated domestic assault and misdemeanor counts of domestic assault and resisting arrest. I've got the article right here in front of me. I'm going to read part of it. Town was sentenced to 30 days to a year, all suspended on the misdemeanor domestic assault conviction, and received a 3-year deferred sentence on the 2 other convictions. He was placed on probation for 3 years. If he successfully completes probation, the felony domestic assault conviction and the misdemeanor resisting arrest conviction could be removed from his record. If he violates the terms of his probation, he'll face open sentencing on those convictions. Witnesses reported that he had domestic violence issues in the past and had been abusing his romantic partner, according to the court records. Court records showed that he was previously convicted on 2 counts of misdemeanor domestic battery in Florida a couple of years ago in 2021. He was charged with felony domestic assault in the February 17th case because of those prior convictions. Police say that they spoke with Town's romantic partner, who reported that she had bruises, but they were caused from her being clumsy and anemic. For the felony domestic conviction, police said that they were called to the Quality Inn February 24th because of a witness reporting that Town was beating his romantic partner. Police said that this victim was found with a large bruise on her arm and a red mark on her forehead, but reported that the injuries were from rough sex and declined assistance from law enforcement. They were the police again called to the Quality Inn on March 2nd because this victim reported that Town had choked her, broken her cell phone that she could not use to call for help, and he wouldn't let her leave the room. The victim reported the Town had assaulted her at least 20 times since January 10th. Police said that when they tried to take Town into custody, resisted arrest, wouldn't put his arms behind his back, was taken to the ground and handcuffed. In court, the deputy state's attorney, Talon Wendell, said that the state came to this agreement after multiple conversations with the victims involved. Wendell said the Town is young and has an opportunity to engage in services through probation to help him re-engage with society and address his behavior, which brought these charges. The prosecutor said the victim, who is in a relationship with Town, wants to move on with her life and wants Town to remain a part of her life. With the deferred sentence, and the article goes on, but with the deferred sentence, the judge urged Town to abide by his probation conditions, said that the felony conviction doesn't stay on his record, and he isn't facing open sentencing in the near future. When I read this article, I, like Raylene, like you, and like many others, were hit a nerve with me for a couple of different reasons. Primarily, first and foremost, my initial shoot from the hip gut instinct is Raylene and I are so sick and tired of hearing in the news and putting on the air here stories of people in Vermont who are getting slapped on the wrist. Mostly, there's a lot of drug-related stories where I have a problem with the fact that it just seems like we are very, very light on crime in some areas, and we're not consistent. And in other areas, it depends on who the judge is. And I understand. And of course, that's going to be that way anywhere, no matter where you live. I get it. But, man, there are some stories where people get off, and it really it hits a nerve in our communities. We don't understand it. there's a lot of issues. There's housing, there's drug use, there's domestic violence. We have a lot of problems here in Vermont, in this little state. What I wrote when I read this, and I want to start off by saying, from now on, I think going forward, actually, I don't think going forward, I know going forward, and I hope I hold myself to this. Instead of posting a reaction, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for the next day or the next opportunity to get on the microphone so that I can further explain myself. But what I wrote, which I won't delete, it's right here. I wrote, after I read this, scratching my head for several reasons. Michael Cooper Smith, who's the judge, Vermont needs a no-tolerance policy on domestic abuse and violence. I hope this doesn't continue to set an example that you can do things like this and get off with such a slap on the wrist. The girlfriend needs to learn to respect herself enough to run, not walk away. This is very potentially the perfect example of the cycle. And what we say, and what will we say if this continues to happen? Or worse, yet someone is killed. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Then the victim blaming charges against me started, and I was really put under quite a punch here, and it started with Caden May Goodrich saying the victim isn't to blame. Leaving a domestic violence situation is extremely challenging for so many reasons. And as soon as I read that, of course, I'm thinking, well, yes, of course. But I didn't say that in my words. I forgot to say that. And then, and of course I know that, but I didn't say it. And that's the problem. And then a whole outline of several.
Got schooled.
I got schooled. Yes. I got schooled
very
hard.
Much.
Very much. So I guess my first question, and it's to both of you, is, am I as much of an ass as it is suggested that I am?
No. Many people do not
Raylene?
Understand. Really. I don't work with you every day. No. So.
You're not. I was being a smart ass like I always am, but no, you're not.
Okay.
I'm happy for the opportunity to talk about this because lots of folks think this way. You know, this is, you care about this, and what you said here, at no point in this did you say this young man needs to not be assaulting people.
Right.
Okay? So you address the judge and you address the young woman. You didn't address the guy.
Yeah.
That's why it's victim blaming.
by default.
Right.
Yeah.
Because nobody, like this young woman doesn't have control over any of this situation.
Right.
Yes, it would be great for her to leave. And he may have a gun. He may have threatened to kill her whole family.
If she speaks or does anything.
Right.
That's the part that's hard, is that nobody knows what happens behind closed doors ever. You don't know the circumstances. You don't know what the threats have been. You don't know what he has hanging over her head. You don't know her resources, her family supports. If she has supports, does she feel alone and trapped? And he's all she has, even though he's an abusive prick. He may be he still is shelter, and he's still something that she does not have. And that's the tough part.
Right. And most folks who are abusive are not 100% abusive. No human being is all good or all bad. Right? So, and young women, people in general are not stupid. They're not going to be with somebody. What I usually, when I'm training people, I say, it's not like she met this person, he called her awful names, he slapped her, and she was like, this is the guy for me.
This is the guy for me.
Yeah,
Right,
like
exactly.
it doesn't work that way.
No, not even close.
Most of the time, folks are what a lot of people call it is love bombing. You know, they're too good to be true. They sweep you off your feet. You know, one of the several red flags are when somebody wants to get really serious too fast. It's almost like they can only hold on to that really loving, good behavior for so long.
Right.
So, you know, but that was your first mistake in this, is that you addressed the judge, you addressed her. You didn't say anything about him. And what I would love to see is the question always being, why does he do that? Why is that abusive person doing that? Not why does she stay? Because what you essentially said is, why doesn't she just leave? Which is the question women get all the time.
Yeah.
And there's a zillion reasons.
Sure.
You know?
Sure is.
We should be asking, why is someone feeling the need to be physically abusive?
Yeah.
You know, violence should not be the answer, period, ever.
Ever.
And until we get to that place where everybody is saying that, all people are saying that, this is going to continue to happen because it's the power dynamic.
And while we're talking, we need to say too that though it's not as often, this can be in reverse. Men can suffer
absolutely.
the same sort of abuse, and to this extent as well. This isn't just a man versus woman issue. This is no matter what your dynamic in any relationship, no matter what.
What we find is that the emotional violence, it happens a lot more to men. Physical violence, does happen. Not always to the same extent,
Right.
but to some extent. You know, 1 in 3 women are victimized in their lifetime, and 1 in 9 men.
Wow.
Yeah,
Vermont?
nationally.
Okay.
I don't know what I could find that out, but
Admittedly, I can only think of maybe 3 women that I have ever known who have been able to get out of a domestic violence relationship.
But it wasn't easy, was it?
No. And
it's never easy.
And it usually had to come to a head where they didn't just wake up on a Sunday morning and say, you know what, I'm tired of this, I think I'm going to move on. It usually came to an event or something huge.
It depends. Often, what I hear, often there'll be, the violence may escalate because it always gets bigger. It never gets smaller. And they might get through that, and then it'll be something smaller or something that just dawns on a person. Because the physical violence is horrendous, awful, all that good stuff. But bodies heal. The violence to your heart sometimes doesn't go away. And when someone realizes that, I had a woman say to me once, I woke up one morning and realized he may not kill me, that I might just live the rest of my life this way. And that's why I left. I always thought he would just end up killing me.
I think we all, and many of us, and I know I'm guilty of this. I feel like I want to applaud and shout from the mountaintops congratulations to someone who is able to get out of a situation, whether they've had help doing it or whether they've done it on their own or whatever. And that has discovered a new life of self-empowerment, starting over, and feeling good about themselves, and also carrying on in their life in a way of saying, I'm number one, and any future relationship that I may or may not have, this will never happen again. I have a newfound love and respect for myself, and I'm never going to let this happen again. I love to feel that. I love to. I want to hear that from people.
Okay. Can I?
I think that's why I wrote what I wrote.
Yes. And it's not that black and white.
Right.
Nothing is. Okay?
And I think that the fact that you just said that it's not black and white.
Yeah.
That's the biggest takeaway of our time here this morning.
It's not black and white.
I wish it was.
Sure. We all wish it was. And the longer you're in an abusive relationship, the more damage it is to your everything. We know that trauma impacts our bodies as well as our minds. Okay? If you have children with someone who is abusive to you, you are not going to be done until that youngest child is 18.
And maybe not even then.
Correct. Because you're going to keep going back to court about custody, because once you leave, it's not the end. Leaving is the beginning of building it back up. And leaving, then you have to deal with how an abuse, some abusive people are able to be like, okay, I'm letting this go. Sometimes they move on to the next victim. Sometimes they move out of state, whatever. Many still try and hold on. So once a person leaves, then it's like, okay, how can I control? So then it's through the kids. Then it's through their job. Then it's, I have plenty of folks that the abuser, she has left. And the abuser keeps showing up at the job, keeps showing up, whatever. Talks her down to all of her friends.
Yeah, interferes with jobs, tells stories that
the
aren't
other
true.
part, always. The other part is leaving is the most dangerous time. That's why we ask people to call us and we can help safety plan to get out safely.
Yeah, it's when they're the most pissed
People die
off.
when they're leaving.
Yeah.
Almost always when you hear murder-suicide, it is domestic violence and the person was thinking about leaving or had left. So leaving is incredibly dangerous because when you're there, you're at least still there to be controlled.
Yeah.
When you leave, that control is getting lost, and so I have to get it back.
There's a lot of comments coming in this morning. I hope you read them all. But one of them that came in the other day was from Gwen, who says, yes, she should leave, but I understand. I was there in her place. Men like that can be very manipulative. I was afraid to leave because it was my house and property. It was my children that he was threatening, holding over my head. He raped me and said that it was his, quote, husband's rights. I was told no one would want me. I was trash. If you hear it enough, it's the truth in your head. I thank God that I had Jim to save me and my sons. He ended up being the love of my life. Serenity wrote, if you've never been in an abusive relationship where you are being beaten, you have no right to say that, quote, the girlfriend needs to learn how to respect herself and run. You have no idea how hard it is to leave and how often women are killed at the hands of their partners. I work in mental health, and I met someone once whose husband moved them to Vermont because he knew if he wanted to kill her, he would be able to get away with it easier here. So I do agree that there should be a zero tolerance policy. But if you think blaming victims and telling them to just leave is the answer, you're dead wrong. Many women are stalked and harassed by exes, threatened to have their children taken away.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, all the above.
And then Mary posted a link, which is fascinating, of why it takes women 7 attempts to leave an abusive relationship.
7 and 9.
7 and 9.
Yeah, it's gotten longer.
Valerie says, let's talk about this cycle. Leaving a domestic violence relationship is what made me and my family homeless in Vermont.
Yep.
So I know how difficult it is for the homeless to get out of their situation. Nothing plays to their favor. It is a system made for people to fail. There are no benefits that lead to being housed. Ashley says domestic violence is so much more than the incidents that gets caught for the world to see. People who experience domestic violence get completely stripped of who they are. They get isolated. Their literal brain chemistry changes. Once I had the courage to leave, I was a shell of a human. I had no idea who I was, and then I was stalked at my place of work. This is not about self-respect. This is abuse, and telling a victim she needs to respect herself and leave is very dangerous and actually disrespectful in itself. Sad to see that you wrote this. Victim blaming ain't it.
So the thing that I want to say is the having self-respect. Mm-hmm. If we can think of the things that we think might shield us from this, mm-hmm. then we think it won't happen to us. I know many, many women and some men who have plenty of self-respect and were still abused. Mm-hmm. Has nothing to do with the person.
Great point.
And then we have to talk about the person that says she ended up homeless. So that's what often is a driving force of going back, because like I said before, that person may be being abusive, but that person also provided a shelter and means for her and her children. And so some security is better than no security in the minds. Sometimes it was for me, like you have to weighing the pros and cons of, okay, where I'm at. And in my situation, I had told you before, I had been asked by even family before, well, what did you do?
Yeah. People ask that all the time.
Or
justification.
Right. What did you do? Or stupid things like they would say, well, at least he's not out drinking every night and doing this, that, and the other to you. So that was somehow some sort of win for me. Like, well, great, and knock your teeth out tomorrow, but at least he's not out running around on you.
We're taught to keep relationships together. Mm-hmm. Mm. Our families want relationships together.
Excellent point.
Religion wants relationships together.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We are taught from very young that when you commit to somebody, you stay with them regardless. Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're married.
Absolutely. And what you had read earlier where the woman said that he said it was his right as his husband to
rape her.
Mm-hmm. I cannot remember right this second when rape became illegal in a marriage, but it wasn't that long ago. Mm-hmm. Like we all think
it wasn't that long ago.
It was like in the 70s. Mm-hmm. Even probably later than that. I should look for Vermont.
I think it was later than that.
Yeah. But, we are all taught that we make nice. Mm-hmm. We figure it out. And while your family is saying that to you, right? Mm-hmm. The person hurting you is saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Right, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Exactly. I'll never do this again. Mm-hmm. I had a terrible childhood. This is all I know. I'm so sorry. You're the only one that can help me. Right?
Yeah.
So it's super duper complicated.
I wonder if I had put in my post a rant about this guy, a bash on just this guy, this local guy, Andre Town. If there would have been people who would have come after me for saying, how dare you bash him? You don't know what his situation is, his story. He may have been abused when he was a little kid, and you shouldn't be bashing abusers. And
you would have gotten that too a little bit, not as much, I think, and it wouldn't, and people wouldn't think you were as big of an asshole as they think you are.
I wrote that. I'm sick and tired of people getting slapped.
But you didn't say you're sick and tired of the violence,
right? And
that's what we have to be sick and tired of.
Let me make it very clear this morning that primarily, above all things, that's what I'm sick and tired of. I'm also sick and tired of our judicial system slapping people on the wrist that deserve a lot more than a slap. And it's not just domestic violence I'm talking about.
No.
It's everything.
So
it's drinking and driving. I mean, the list goes. It's a mile long. Vermont is way, way, way too light on offenses like this. And there's a story in the news this morning about a guy up in St. Johnsbury who repeatedly punched his pregnant girlfriend, who showed up at the police station covered in bruises. And because this has happened several other times, it's now time number whatever. I don't know what it is. I can't remember. Time number 2, incident number 3 or 4. And now he is officially stamped as a habitual offender. Do you think someone should be a habitual offender after time number 2? I mean, why do we have to wait till 3 or 4? I mean, is Vermont tough enough on domestic violence? I think is my question for you.
I don't think anywhere is tough enough on domestic violence, okay? Or any violence. I think it's super duper complicated. What happens is everybody, judges get pressure from legislature. The state's attorney's office gets pressure from the police. I would encourage you to have somebody from the state's attorney's office in to talk about what they go through. Plea deals are really complicated and involves DOC, probation officers. It's really...
And the victim.
Because
you have to decide whether or not you're going to torment the victim further by having them testify.
Right.
Yes.
A lot of victims don't want to sit in front of their abuser and say all those things because that was a threat. Don't you dare tell on me. Don't you do this. Don't you do that.
Especially when the victim knows that person's going to get out and they're going to find her. Because almost always they get out. I'm working with somebody right now who the guy's getting out. He almost killed her and almost killed the woman before her, and he got 3 months. And the thing is, we can't put them all away.
Right. Yeah. And
we can't. Course, we don't have the money to incarcerate all of them.
Right.
So we need to get the community
right.
to actually care enough about this for you to say to your buddy, this isn't okay.
Yeah, cut this shit. Yeah.
That's what we need. We need, and it's not all men, but we need the good men to be standing up to the others.
Yeah.
This is all done in secret. Most of the time, abusers are well liked in the community.
Sure. I want to make it clear that the way I feel, it maybe not totally aligned with what I wrote. I don't feel that this asshole from Florida that situation is because of the victim. Victim. When I saw the words victim blaming, I was like, whoa. There's a big misunderstanding.
That's not what I meant. No, that's not what I meant.
That's
Yeah.
not. That's.
And most people don't. They just don't know they're doing it.
I just yeah. But I mean, I'm just not that guy that would just sit and blame the victim. I would love to see the victim be victorious over this, like I said earlier, and start a new life and have self-empowerment.
But you do understand that that's tough, and you certainly.
And we would need to put some money there. There needs to be good therapy that is paid for. There needs to be a house that is paid for. You know what I mean? Like none of those good things come out of nothing.
Yeah.
When we have folks come into our shelter, folks can stay in our shelter basically as long as they need to. And those times have gotten longer and longer because there's no freaking housing.
Right. Yeah.
But during the time that folks are with us, we help them to start realizing what has occurred, talk about what are the red flags to look for next, and how do you deal with your traumatized brain.
Sure. I think first and foremost, above all things, I mean, I was just outraged that what I'm reading, I just can't believe this is a repeat offender, a habitual offender.
JD, this happens every day.
Slapped on the wrist.
Every day.
Probation?
This happens every day.
We've got comments, ship him back to Florida, quick fix here.
There is no quick fix.
No.
There is no quick fix.
But I mean, it's like, how? I'm asking both of you, how could a judge
because there's not a lot of options.
Right. Look at the rap sheet here. Okay, this wasn't a one-time situation. How could a judge say, "I'm concerned about you. I'm worried about you. I would love to see you be re-engaged with your community, and I'm going to slap you on the wrist, and I'm going to throw the coin in the air that it's going to land on heads, and you're going to wake up tomorrow a better guy after 3 years of probation." So what you talk about a cycle? I mean, if this guy is...
Oh, he'll definitely do it again.
Especially that the girlfriend is saying, yeah, I still want him in my life. Well, so are we going to... Do you think we're going to see Andre Towns' name in the paper?
Again?
Absolutely. In the next 3 years?
Absolutely.
And maybe even with hers.
With her or with somebody else.
Yeah.
Yep. Here's some... So... There are domestic violence accountability programs, okay? They used to be called BIPs, Batter Intervention Programs. Now they're domestic violence accountability programs. And we have one right here in Washington County. It's called Revisions. Yvonne does a great job. And it wasn't funded until this year. Okay? It just got funded. And DOC sends people to it, Department of Corrections, right? There's like no alternatives to help people figure it out. I don't believe that most abusive people want to be abusing. I believe they don't know how to do it different. What you said earlier was you, from now on, are going to take 24 hours or a breather before you respond.
Yes, ma'am.
That is exactly what abusive people need to do. You cannot make somebody hit you. That is a choice. Your family said, what did you do? You cannot make somebody hit you. That is a choice that they make. They can walk away. They can scream real loud. They can do all kinds of things. If we taught people from the time they were really little that they did not have to go give in to all of their impulses, things would be different. It's about consent, whether or not I can touch you, right? And it's about understanding that we have control over our bodies. So when the legislation does not fund programs to help people learn things to do different, right? And because there's one in the county, every abusive person that is in DOC is getting sent to this. So that means the
Wait
guys...
list.
Right. Well, and it means the guys that have done this 12 times and the guy who it's his first offense are in the same group. This program revisions would do wonders if they only had first-time offenders in it. But they don't. Because they're, the system is so broken.
Yeah, it's just like even with addiction or anything else, and I've said it a million times, it's how we know it's here. We know that drug abuse is here. We know that domestic violence is here.
Sexual
and it's
violence.
it's up to all of us to decide it's here, but how is it going to be in our community? Because it's not a secret. And it shouldn't be a secret. It is here. And it's up to us to decide how it's going to be here, because where we are spending our money needs to start coming into play, and we don't think about that enough. And there's not enough programs for any of this stuff. And until we start spending our money on some of that, nothing is going to change. It would be worth the investment.
Right. And the general public doesn't know any of this stuff.
No.
They just think, oh, God, that's those people over there.
Yeah.
And
They think
point.
there's plenty of services.
And they think there's plenty of services.
And there's
they
not.
think that people can leave and be victorious.
Right.
And
Who can come in and talk about revisions?
Yvonne,
Doesn't matter. We'll find out.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you. I can't remember. Yvonne Bird.
Okay. I'm
And I would come in with her
I'm-
if she would like that.
please.
Yeah.
It would be wonderful. I'm
She's been doing this work for a really long time.
I'm thinking as you're speaking. I'm thinking of circle, and I'm imagining a circle, and which is a cycle. There's a beginning, and it goes up, and then it comes back, and it finishes at the beginning. What it seems like what you're talking about with revisions is nipping this in the ass just
In
as
the beginning.
it's starting to move up the circle, like 10%. Like not trying to fight this after it's 3/4 of the way around the circle.
Yep.
Courtney's allies. You've been on the air with us before with Alex. She wrote that Courtney was huge story here in Central Vermont.
Yep.
Was killed because of a domestic violence situation. The most dangerous time for someone is after they leave. To victim blame and say that she needs to learn to respect herself and run instead of walk is absolutely disgusting. It is not about self-respect. It's about safety. Clearly, you didn't pay attention when Courtney's allies and Circle were on your podcast, or you would have known better than to victim blame. Shame on you.
Well, if you remember,
What do you say about that?
when Courtney was killed, she was killed by someone who was very well liked in the community.
Yes, he was. And very well known. His family's well known. Yes.
Right. So one of the reasons she had a hard time telling anybody and getting help was because of that. This can happen to anybody.
And she did leave. She
And
was
she did leave.
living
She left,
on
yeah.
her own,
Yeah.
and he went to her anyway.
Right.
Yep. That's why this is so hard.
Fueled
is
by-
because
fueled by
people
jealousy.
don't want to believe that good people can do awful things, and they can. And he was not all bad. He was well liked, but he chose to commit violence.
Yeah.
If we don't get the community This can't be a government solves this problem or
Yeah.
nonprofits solve this problem. It's got to be something that we have to look at within our community.
Mm-hmm.
Rebecca from our house says Courtney did leave, like you just said, and was gone for quite some time, months, and that she was stalked and murdered in her own separate apartment. Victims are in the most danger when they leave or have left. This is why there are secret shelter locations for safety from these men. I have always respected this podcast, but this victims blaming and massive lack of awareness on such a platform is something I have no respect for. JD, this is gross of you. I hope you take the opportunity to learn and take a class or two about domestic violence and the cycles and absolute mind-fucking that these victims experience.
Well, you have. You know, I think it's really good of you to address this head on. And it was a great opportunity for me to talk about what we do and how people don't understand. So you gave us an opportunity to talk about this, which is super important, and I'm really grateful.
Of all of these comments, I guess where I'm coming from is, I never felt like I was blaming the victim. I was trying to.
How do you feel now?
I feel like, I wanted to give a boost to the victim and say, I want you to rise above this and leave it up to the victim to break the cycle, which is...
Right. Now you know. Now you know.
Now you know. Not her responsibility.
It's not her responsibility, which some might disagree with you. Some might say to you, Diane, of course it's her responsibility. We can't rely on the state and everything to always fix everyone's problem. At some point, this woman or this victim, whoever she is, has got to rise above this and be stronger and say no. And what we've learned today is that most of the time that just doesn't happen.
No. Well, and if it was an isolated incident and it didn't happen to anybody else and it wasn't all over in our society, I would agree with you, sure. But we know that this happens constantly.
Yeah.
Our phones ring 15 to 20 times a day with people telling us what's going on for them.
A day.
Yes.
Times 7.
Yes.
And if there's resources, if there's no resources to help you find a path out, you'll do something dumbass like me and find your own resources and then serve time for doing so. I mean, it's the way it is. There aren't enough. If you are really feeling like you don't have the support of your family, if you have a good job, you work in this environment where you don't want anybody to know and you're constantly covering up because it's an embarrassing situation too, because you don't want some asshat telling you, well, just leave then, because it's not that easy. So did you
just call me an asshat?
I did.
Okay.
It's an embarrassing situation. It's a situation that you feel like, one, you don't have control, but then to hear other people's wanting to know why you're so stupid or what are you doing wrong or why don't you just leave or any of that, when they have no idea. And we can say about the abuser, well, nobody knows what his life was like or her life was like. It's the same way for the person being abused. You don't know what their life was like. So, maybe they were running from something, and this person that, comes in full gusto. They're going to save the day. They're going to be your hero in life. And you cling to that because that is something that you are already missing. Yep. And that's great for 6 months. And then shit hits the fan. It's the same person you just fled a whole life of. And you're trapped again. But this is all you know, too. And it's a big, huge can of worms. It's not even a small one.
Yeah, and every
and no
single
one's same.
That's what I was going to say. Every single domestic violence situation is different and unique.
Absolutely. What we do is we meet people where they are.
Yeah.
So I'm never going to say to somebody, "You got to leave." Mm-hmm. I'm going to say, "What can I help you with today? What do you most need?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that might be to just talk about it.
Yeah.
A lot of times when people call us, they have not told another soul what is going on for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I when I wrote my comment, I was remembering a lady, very specific lady in Massachusetts, who was in a domestic violence situation for 38 years. Mm-hmm. And she got out of it. Mm-hmm. And how she got out of it is very long and complicated.
Yep.
But she finally took some steps, woke up one morning and said, "Okay, enough's enough. I'm going to work to get out of this."
Yep.
It took a while.
Yep.
She got out of it. I remember, this was a long time ago. This was probably 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. But I remember feeling so happy for her, for lack of a better term. Mm-hmm. Victory. Mm-hmm. Proud.
Which I know you are, just so that, like, I'm teasing you a little bit here, but you know that I know that you deeply care, and I know that you and I have had discussions about my situation, and I know that your heart was very much in the right place, but you said the wrong thing, or you just worded it wrong, and we all do that. I mean, I do it every day. You say things that it doesn't come out of your mouth the way it sits in your heart and in your mind. It doesn't come out of your mouth that way because it's not an easy thing to talk about. You're frustrating, you're the emotions are high for you, and I know your initial thought is that you probably just soon go kick the shit out of the guy and rescue her or help her. You know what I mean? Yeah. I understand, either. Right? Yeah. But I understand. I know that you came, that when you said it, you said it from a very good place, and that you certainly meant no harm.
And what you're describing of somebody leaving after a really long time and doing it carefully is what we do with folks all the time. Mm-hmm. We have worked with people who have planned for 1 year to 2 years to get out of relationships. And that's the safest way to do it. Because we know that leaving is the most dangerous time. So figuring out how to plan, to put away money, to open a bank account that's only in your name, to, all those things. Did you know that person personally?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I'll be real transparent here. When I met you, Raylene, and you told me your story, I just didn't have any judgment, because if I didn't walk in her shoes. I didn't walk in your shoes. If I had, might I have done the same thing for the sake of survival and keeping my kids? Quite possibly.
Yep.
Might even have done something more. But I don't have any, there's no judgment. And a lot of people judge. I never would have done that.
Well, they want to believe that. You don't know until you're in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same breath, I don't know what the word is. I'm proud that you left. I'm proud that you got out of that. I mean, yeah, you got out of it in a way that's a movie could be written about it.
For sure.
Definitely a book.
For sure.
Which I think you should write, by the way.
Yes, I know.
A whole nother thing. I'll put pressure on you about that later. But but the fact is, you're not going to go down that road again.
That's not true.
You never know.
But I have been in relationships since that was not the greatest of relationships. Did I learn from experience? Yes. I got out sooner. They weren't, physical, but there's so many different definitions of the whole thing, and so really I laugh and say this to you, to Michael Booten, to all that, I have spent the majority of my life, probably the first 47 years of my life, in hell, and now I'm a bitch. Now I finally decided that, nope, you know what? I'm not going to take crap from anybody, and I just don't anymore. Yep. And sometimes it's hard for me to deal with me. Like, I think I don't really like myself because I'm a real asshole, but an asshole is who I have to be the majority of the time to keep that strength. Because if I let it go back just this much, I could totally be in a relationship like that. I could totally want to be somebody's everything and be treated like, this great person and coddled all the time. But I've learned what that can get me. And so it has made me hard, but it's also in a way made me a person that I really don't always like. And that's super tough to deal with too. Mm-hmm.
This is textbook of what I'm saying and how I felt, that I would love to hear this girlfriend, this victim, say similar such words as that right there. That's all I was trying to say.
But do you feel victorious?
In some ways.
Well, you paid a price.
Yeah.
In
In some ways.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and how much of society is telling you that you're acting like a bitch? And
well,
that's
social media.
Right, and so that is
right.
the good part. So that is the one good part, is I don't give a shit.
Right.
So,
but you have to get to that place.
The people that matter to me don't mind, and they know, and so they don't even perceive it as me being a bitch. Right. But sometimes I
the thing is that you have boundaries.
Yeah.
You have very clear boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody is okay when you have boundaries.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely
and that's not. What's wrong with our society. Every person deserves to say what they do or don't want in their lives.
Yeah.
And not everybody can handle that. Boundaries are like one of the first things that go out the window when you're in a relationship that is abusive.
Yep.
Because the person who is harming you does not respect your boundaries.
No. Yeah.
And helping people, all people, to understand that they're allowed to have boundaries starts from very, very young.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when mom says, go hug Uncle Harry.
Right.
And
Don't
Uncle
say
Harry
that shit.
stinks and you don't want to hug Uncle Harry, kids shouldn't be made to hug Uncle Harry.
Mm-mm.
They should be allowed to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And when you tell a kid they're not allowed to say no,
Mm-hmm.
that's where it starts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Everybody should be able to say what is okay and not okay for them.
Yeah.
Every person on this planet. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why that offends people, but it does.
It very much does. Yep.
Great conversation. We got to have you on again.
I would love to be here. I like talking to you guys.
What else are we missing here?
I think
What else should be said?
That it's really hard to do this alone. Mm-hmm. If you are in a relationship that feels not okay, that calling circle doesn't mean you're going to leave, doesn't mean you're going to do anything. It means you're going to have a conversation to learn about options.
Mm-hmm. So you guys don't say, "Oh, well, now that you've called us, you're on the radar. We're going to, report this to the state, and we're going to we're going to do this."
We don't. I don't tell anybody anything.
You guys
totally confidential.
You begin at the beginning,
and people get worried. Mm-hmm. And people will say to other, "Oh, if you call them, then you're going to have to leave. If you call them, you're going to have to call the police. If you call them," none of that is true. Mm-hmm. We meet people where they are, and we'll support you. And we don't report a goddamn thing anywhere, ever. Mm-hmm. The only time we have to say something to anybody is if a child is being harmed. Mm-hmm. And even then, we are not going to do that without the parent of the child knowing that.
Interesting.
We are incredibly, I'll get calls from police saying, we got a missing person report and we think that person is in your shelter. I can't confirm or deny. Period. End of story. I don't care who calls me.
I think you have said that in the past when we've had you on the podcast here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are totally confidential. And I'm not going to tell anybody anything unless you want me to. Because that's the other thing that we do a lot of is advocate for people.
Right.
So if somebody's working with the state's attorney's office and they're concerned about the sentencing, whatever, we can advocate. Mm-hmm. But we'll only do that if you ask us.
Who should we get on the air here from Victims Advocacy?
You could get Holly on.
Mm-hmm.
You could get Michelle Donnelly on.
Mm-hmm.
Because the part I think that is really confusing is how complex the criminal system is.
Mm-hmm. And outdated laws.
Right.
Outdated laws.
I mean, we have some pretty outdated stuff, for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
And mindsets of people, though, we have to engage our community different when it comes to all of these things, because you're right, we can't afford to house them, but you also can't expect DOC to oversee all of these either.
Right.
You can't expect one probation officer to be supervising 36 people and be able to get, because that's supposedly, all the funding they have is for this many people, or they're short-staffed or where the money is going, where are are you willing to invest your money matters.
Sure.
And so if there are resources, we talk about with the addiction thing all the time that, CBSAS closed, Turning Point was closed down, all of these things are not available, and they all connect.
They
all
connect.
of it
It's
connects.
all interconnected. Like you
We
were
have
talking
to.
about earlier, when folks don't have the resources to get out, often people will turn to substances in order to
cope.
There's the circle.
And then,
Or the cycle, I should say.
that gets used against them.
Which is what I did. I started drinking like a fish because then I was like drunk, didn't care, bring it on.
Right.
Didn't care.
Sure.
And
Yeah. And why not? Like that, you get to a point where a body can only take so much. You have to relieve stuff somehow.
Yeah.
And once you start with substances, then things start becoming true what the abusive person said to you. DCF is going to get called. This is going to, and it all just spirals.
Reading this story, just this one story, and again, Times Argus publishes, as Steve Pappas says, 3 or 4 a month, so about once a week.
Yep.
And those are the stories that are just getting published. Those aren't the actual stories that are just happening.
Oh, yeah.
Those are just the ones that are making the paper.
That just are the criminal cases.
I would love to pick up the Times Argus sometime and read a story about how the judge, especially with a habitual offender like this, hands this guy his ass. And maybe even more so, read in the same article that the victim is saying, I don't want this guy back in my fucking life. I want him out of my life.
That takes a while.
It seems like that's a different story.
It'll probably never happen in your lifetime.
It does happen for some
but
people.
at the absolute least, Vermont should be saying, yo, you're a habitual offender. I don't care if you came from Florida, Missouri, wherever the hell you came from. You can't do that shit in Vermont, and whether or not we think you're a great guy or you could be a great guy someday, you are accountable for your actions. You have proven repeatedly that you ain't learning your lesson. So here's what you're going to get. Number 1. Number 2, it'd be great, like I said, to also read in an article. I mean, I wanted to read, no, I don't want him back in my life. That's what I wanted to read.
And it might not be safe for her to say that. It might be true,
and that's
but
why
she
you're
may
here.
not be able to say it.
That's why you're here today.
It might be very well be true. And she knows if she says that, he's going to be out like yesterday.
Sure.
And be right back at her.
Right. It's fascinating. You have taught me, both of you have taught me a lot. I don't know.
I am happy that you were open to the conversation.
Well, I think if I had waited till the next day and put that comment into the microphone, I think Raylene would have, I know Raylene would have, she would have said, I don't want to put words, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Raylene, but I think you would have said, I got you. I know what you're saying. I understand what you're saying.
But there would have been a big but.
But. And I probably would have, said, yeah, but, and you would have probably reminded me again that it's just not that easy. And you're coming from experience. And I'm not. And, yeah, no more posting comments for me. I'm waiting for the microphone. It's just, I don't know. Thank you.
I'm glad that you feel so passionately.
Well,
And I would love to figure out ways that you can help other folks to understand this like you're doing today. I'll come back and talk to you anytime you want.
I hope you do. And bring others with you. And I would love to see Yvonne in here from...
Yeah, I'll email her today.
Revisions.
And let her know what she's in for.
It has been an absolute pleasure having you in here. I can't commend you enough for what you do all the time, every day, you and your team. It's absolutely amazing what you do.
We get more back than we give.
Wow.
Watching somebody be able to make moves toward leaving, huge.
Yeah.
I
bet.
know 25, 30 Raelenes, which enriches my life to no end.
Amazing. Thanks, Diane.
Thank you.
Thanks, Raylene. Thanks for having this conversation. Appreciate you.
Yep.